Hello, everyone. This is Greg, your host of Goddamn Gamecube, and this is Season 4. Follow Goddamn Gamecube on social for updates on the show, and subscribe to us on YouTube for bonus video content. Thank you, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Goddamn Gamecube. Greg and Riley are your hosts. My brother Nick, the intern, is with us again. And today we are going to be talking about Hades. This game got a ton of acclaim. It was recommended to me over and over and over. I don't have a lot of experience with roguelike games, so I thought this was a really good time to perhaps jump in. Riley, why don't you take it and let's do it?
Of course. So this game called Hades, released in 2019 fully. It is a roguelike hack and slash action RPG. That's a lot of different stuff. Developed and published by Supergiant Games. Previous games by Supergiant include Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre. Did you guys play any of those? I did not.
I did not either.
Okay, so this is all our first Supergiant game. It was initially released via early access on the Epic Games Store in 2018 as a sort of beta test. And I thought this was kind of interesting that they did this because I would probably be a little bit more forgiving for a game like this where it's more arcadey and I feel like the story doesn't matter as much, and they were just trying to test it out with people and see how well it worked. So I wanted to, before we get too far, I'm not familiar with roguelikes either. So I did want to bring up a quote by the lead designer who said, roguelikes are about trying to harness the unknown and prevent it from killing you. You attempt to exert some degree of control over your life, but you are, for the most part, managing and adapting to random events that happen to you. And I thought it was achieved pretty well in this game, but I did want to bring up the comparison with that's very similar to the Disco Elysium quote where we make wishes to our bodies and minds and hope that they cooperate. Very similar kind of game philosophy there. So in this game, you take control of Hades, the god, the Greek god, his son Zagreus, during multiple attempts to escape the underworld and reconnect with your extended family on Mount Olympus. The designer Greg Kasavin, his name, was always intrigued by Greek mythology and felt that Hades itself was underexplored, especially Zagreus, who is very, very seldomly mentioned. They portrayed the Pantheon as a dysfunctional family in the hopes that this aspect would resonate with audiences, which for me it did. I felt as though the game did a good job capturing sort of the fickle, petty, and egotistical nature of the Greek gods as we know them from literature. But I did want to ask the Greeks, what do we think about this portrayal of Greek mythology?
Okay, that's pretty funny.
Let's hear it.
Let me take it. All right. So I think I like the portrayal of all the Greek gods in this game.
Yeah.
They didn't get into all like the really, really weird and
obscure ones.
Yeah. Or like all the really bad stuff that gods like Zeus did, which is probably for the best.
Yes.
But I think it's great to see because
a little lighthearted.
Yeah, there are not a lot of games, especially these days, that deal with Greek mythology. There's really just God of War and then fucking Titan Quest back in the day.
Right.
And I don't think, like, man, when was the last time we even heard a story about Zagreus, the son of Hades?
I didn't know who that was.
It's debatable, I think. Scholars debate whose son he actually is.
Sure, yeah.
But Hades was apparently a prominent, a common theory as to who his father was.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool how they, I don't know. I never see this in games, so I guess for me, it's definitely a draw.
Yeah.
That's a really good point you brought up where beyond like God of War or I don't know, like, I don't think I've experienced games like this in terms of that kind of mythology. Not really.
Not a ton.
No. Not really.
Especially not with this kind of like winky, like lighthearted approach that they have.
Before we get too far into the discussion, I do want to say when it comes to roguelikes, Nick and I have a lot of experience with Diablo and Diablo 2,
right.
which are roguelikes to some extent. There are roguelike aspects in them.
Right.
But
they're not roguelikes, but they have some of their similar qualities.
So do you guys know the difference between a roguelike, and a roguelite?
Yeah.
So
I believe I do not have Google open. I believe just from my own knowledge, a roguelite is Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Where The game does have a linear. Yes, you can finish it, and no, it is not. It is not. It is not randomized or generated.
Yeah.
However, the areas you go. How do I explain this? The areas you go to, what you experience is slightly randomized, but you don't do the same thing over and over again. You progress through a story, through areas. But if you were to start a new game, it's going to be like randomized or jumbled.
Yes.
But I believe but Hades being a roguelike game, you're doing the same thing over and over and over. I believe that would be the difference.
Okay.
I believe that's as far as my knowledge goes.
And what's a vanilla rogue?
I believe it is literally the game itself.
Oh, okay.
I believe that originated it.
All right.
That's also in the comments. If you know more than me, that's as much as I know about those kind of genres.
Okay. So moving on here, this game is presented in an isometric view. Also like Disco Elysium. Getting my feet wet a little bit with these this season. I played it on the PS4. I thought it was extremely clean and fluidly animated, very high resolution models. When you converse with the other characters, they have kind of a manga style, I don't know how you pronounce it, portrait, which is more detailed. It's up close. I found that the voice acting was largely excellent. Some characters, like Hypnos and Dusa, were a little too anime for me.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm getting?
Yeah. I can see that.
Way too over the top.
I can see that. Yeah.
But I wanted to bring up something kind of interesting. Is that I thought the score was very unique and memorable, especially the track that plays as you're leaving the underworld for the first time, like as soon as you jump out the window or whatever. Like it's a very groovy, cool track.
Yes.
But it is the voice of Zagreus is the composer.
Oh, that's cool.
So he voices Zagreus. Cool. He voices Skelly, the combat dummy guy.
Yep.
And is the singing voice for Orpheus.
Oh wow!
So it's multi-talented.
Cool. Yeah.
And this guy described it. Darren Korb. He described the score as Mediterranean prog rock Halloween. And
that is quite the description.
It's quite a description, and I think there's a little bit of post rock in there as well. I would say. I thought I mean, like I don't like hum a lot of it, but like if you throw it on, it's a groovy, it's a groovy little soundtrack.
Kind of meets with what the game is trying to accomplish too. I think it really fits this kind of game.
Well, I also feel like this game is you're at sort of the upper end of what an indie studio can do.
Yes,
right. You're right up there with the fidelity of this soundtrack and the voice acting, and you're right up there with the budget.
Do you know? I mean, because we've been discussing on and off some AA games. Would you consider this a AA game or?
I do. This is. I think that that's tricky. You might be able to argue that. I don't know.
It's either the higher end of a single A or lower end of a AA.
I think it's the higher end of an indie studio. Really like that. That sort of you're in. I'm not sure what the budget for this game was. I'm guessing it was between $7 and $10 million.
Sure.
I'm guessing.
Okay.
I still consider Supergiant an indie studio.
I do too.
It is a very indie, like it reminded me a little bit, because I'm not, as I said, I'm not super familiar with this type of game. It reminded me a lot of like a Flash game or something like that. Very kind of tight, repetitive sort of thing. Wanted to mention before we get too far away from the visuals, a very vibrant color palette this has. Makes characters and areas very clearly identifiable, enemies as well.
Yep.
You know, there's very little confusion about what you're looking at, who you're looking at. I thought that was a very strong aspect of the game. The aesthetic was inspired by the works of Mike Mignola, who did Hellboy, his comics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I could totally see that. I like those first two movies a lot. And Fred Taylor, who is an English painter and poster designer he lived from 1875 to 1963. And so that is kind of where the background, the locations come into play, where they make it look like these old posters. He did a lot of railway advertisements, and he also designed some camouflage for soldiers during World War II. Kind of an interesting little tidbit there. Something else that was interesting about this game to me was a very kind of inoffensive portrayal of multiple ethnicities and sexualities.
Very sure.
Like, you know, they are the Greek gods, but they are, I think Hermes is Asian, and a couple different characters. Like it's like you would think that it's all just going to be like token like white people in costumes,
Yeah, of
like
course.
and you have like and so what I found interesting was they talked a little about that and they said it's not that these were the gods that were worshipped by the Greeks, like they were themselves did not necessarily have to be Greek, and I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that's
And there's some characters who are bisexual or homosexual, and it's very like I think tastefully portrayed. It's just like it's not. I feel like a lot of I was talking about like how some characters were a little too anime. I was a little concerned that I heard a rumor that was featured in this game, and I was concerned that it was going to be very. What's that game that you hate where they did that, where they made it very cartoony and over the top, and you said it was in poor taste? Dragon Quest?
Yeah, Dragon Quest 11.
Yes.
Where like I just felt like maybe the portrayal of LGBT characters was just made fun of them more than it supported them.
And so Zagreus is bisexual in this game, and it's just kind of like a thing. Like it's not like it's just it's very kind of part of his life, etc. So I'm not too familiar with this type of art style or this type of game in general, but I found it as a newcomer, especially as well as the UI. I found it very accessible. Do you guys agree with this? Or
Yeah, I mean, this game is way more accessible than like Darkest Dungeon or even Diablo, which is brutal.
And I will say, I played on the Switch, and I think I have a lot of issues with Switch games and the text being too small, especially when going from TV to portable.
Right.
And I didn't really have any problems with this game. I think the UI is great. I think everything looks great.
Very
they did a really good job.
Very very smooth.
PS5 for me. What did you play it on, Riley?
PS4.
Okay, got it.
I will say I did have a teeny tiny bit of frame rate issues when it got super crazy.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
some
A lot of
parts.
people.
Sometimes it was very slight.
Yeah.
Not something I'm going to make a big stick about, but I should say there was a little bit, which you kind of expect if you're playing the Switch
I want to
version.
say
Yeah.
it might have happened to me occasionally, but nothing that was like it ruined a run.
No, absolutely
Nothing
not.
or anything
egregious.
like that.
No.
Um,
We aren't talking Blight Town over here.
No, absolutely not. So, getting into like the central gameplay loop here a little bit. I don't, I. This is really funny because my next point was going to be about how it ran super well and how it like even with tons of shit on the screen, it ran super well. The labyrinth that you descend into. So this game is, as I mentioned, you're trying to escape the underworld. There's 3.5 kind of different areas, and it randomly generates or selects a room you can go into, and you can choose which one you want to go into next. So it randomly selects the rooms, keeps you on your toes a little bit. I thought makes the game a little less repetitive because you die a good amount if you're not experienced with this type of game. I've heard people who've done it in like 10 runs. I don't remember how many it took me, but it was a lot.
We were right around 30, right?
Yeah,
somewhere between
that
25
sounds
and
right
30.
for me.
Yeah, right around 30.
So it for me it kept the game a little more fresh than it would have been otherwise, where you are just doing the same thing over and over again. For them, the objective was to make a game that was very replayable, but kept the story moving forward every time you made it through. They tried to ensure that no run was a waste of time, and I think that's something that they succeeded at. Where you're getting new every time you die and go back to the Palace of Hades. You're getting new dialogue with the characters. You are at least a little bit better off each time. You can maybe make it a little bit further every
You're
time.
retaining something.
You retain the
Yes.
what are the dark crystal things called? I believe you retain those when you die.
Yeah.
do not?
You retain, I think, all or most of your resources.
Yeah.
It just depends on, so you can buy things in the House of Hades and make your character better. It started out, I found out, as it's maybe would have made a little more sense. The maze of Minos, the Minotaur and Theseus and his attempts to escape. And they felt that it was a little too bland. So those characters eventually, as we know, got turned into characters themselves later on. And you had kind of I think it was a good decision where even though, yes, it would have made more sense as a maze, it has a little bit more personality, this way.
Yes.
Choosing which reward you're going after next, for me, it always felt like a very meaningful choice. At times, it meant life and death. Like I thought that was a very good, because and for all I know, this is in every roguelike game. But I did like that a lot, where it's like, well, they show you what the reward is going to be in the next room. And it's like, do you want to go after this? Sometimes the choice is obvious. Like, I don't need like the coins or whatever. I don't need the stuff that I'm going to give to the builders. But I felt like, I'm like, shit, what do I want to upgrade what I have now? Do I want to get a new one? For me, I felt that it was at least impact. Did you guys feel the same way? How did you feel?
Yeah, I did. So I had some runs where I don't want to call them a grinding run, where
Yeah.
like I knew I was trying out a new weapon. I knew I probably wasn't going to get very far. So that also helped me with the decision of, okay, this is more of a trial run to try out this weapon. I'm going to choose all of the dark crystal things, just so when I know I'm going to die,
You can
I'll
spend
at least-
them on
Exactly. I'll get something from the run. And you do come to some really difficult choices sometimes, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, I'm low on health, but I'm also kind of weak. Do I choose getting the health recovery? Do I choose going this way? Do I go to Charon's shop? Do I get the coins just in case
Yes.
I find Charon's shop? I thought that was pretty cool.
Totally. Yeah. So you can select all different kinds of like, and I'm not sure how much of that is random, like what rewards are offered.
Sure. Yeah.
But it was pretty cool, and I deliberately was designed to encourage you to sort of experiment with different play styles, different options. Even if you've already found like what seems to be a winning strategy, they were trying to get you to open up and kind of maybe I could do a little better if I chose this weapon or I tried this strategy, etc. And as you progress through the maze, the different gods, their rewards will help you out in different ways. They kind of apply them to your weapons or your other abilities, etc. So you have Zeus, Poseidon, Athena, Aphrodite, Artemis, Ares, Dionysus, Hermes, and Demeter. So they're all different people that you can consult for help. They can make your weapons do a particular amount of damage. If you sprint, you can have some sort of after effect there, your heavy attacks, etc. Something I wanted to bring up that I didn't really like was the cast ability. I didn't love it. I found the specials useful occasionally. I got up to the point where you can, so it's a little diamond thing, right? I guess that's like the Supergiant logo. So that's kind of
is
cute.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Okay.
you can throw a bunch of them at a boss or an enemy or whatever, and they will take increased damage as long as it's attached to them, and you have to kill them to get it back. And it's something else. I mean, I appreciate that it's another level of gameplay, but it felt like doing it was kind of clunky, and it was just kind of like everything else is like super rapid fast, like very in the moment. It just kind of took me out of like a little bit. So you can, at least when you consult with the different gods, you can do like whirlwind attacks and stuff with them, and it makes it a little bit more interesting.
So for me, I think, in speaking about the cast, I think it kind of goes with how I think building your character for a specific run in this game goes. It's usually a better idea to focus on one particular aspect of combat, whether that be with a light attack, a dash attack, or the cast. So I had some runs where I purposely tried to upgrade my cast to see how efficient it was. And honestly, it was pretty fun. Like, we can get some, I believe it's Poseidon, who I believe it's with a cast, that you can get some like pushback on enemies and make them like fly into walls,
or
take
if
increased
they
damage.
attack you, they will bounce back.
Exactly. So I thought, I think if you build Zagreus in that specific run to have an increased damage or increased effects on his cast, it sort of becomes your main way of doing damage.
Right.
And I thought that was a pretty good way of doing it. I will say casting was probably my least favorite way of progressing through the dungeons, but I can see why people would like it, and I'm sure there are some very overpowered combos out there that
I'm
have
sure there's
found.
like cast only runs on YouTube.
Absolutely,
and stuff.
totally. I'm sure that's maybe. Hey, you know what? We're all saying we didn't like it. For all we know, it could be the ultimate way to go through the game.
Yeah, we just fucked it up. So I wanted to ask you guys, who's which god or character's aid did you find the most helpful?
So I thought damage over time in this game was really strong.
Yeah.
So my favorites were probably Ares.
Yeah,
and
Ares
then
was very good.
Dionysus, and to an extent Zeus.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite. I liked because I think Ares has I believe it's called Doom. effect, where after a certain amount of time, a couple seconds or something, the enemy takes a big burst of damage.
Right.
I was a big shield guy.
Mhm.
So if you put it on your shield throw ability, you can hit multiple people with it. Then a second
cool.
later, they all take increased burst damage.
Got
I thought
it.
that was really fun.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Oh, no, I'm good. Go right ahead.
I was gonna say either Doom or I believe Doom or Freeze. Who was Freeze? Was,
Demeter.
that was Demeter, right?
Demeter, yeah.
Because I think my first run through the game, it was Fists and Freeze. I think
Okay.
when I actually
F and
did
F,
it,
baby. Fists and Freeze.
when I did it
Fists and Freeze.
successfully.
Yep.
I agree with you. I felt like either damage over time or ailment or something.
Like Dionysus had a good ailment. Hangover was very similar.
Yeah,
to
Hangover's
Doom.
the other one too.
Yeah.
Hangover and Doom. I think we might be in alignment there. Hangover and Doom. Did you? What was yours?
No, I mean, so I feel like I tried everybody, but
Yep.
yeah, the freezing was interesting because you can like literally just freeze them in place and
Yes.
concentrate on other people, etc. I didn't mention also I didn't use it very much at all, was the special move that you charge up. There's a really good one with Artemis, who has the bow, and it just like it does like a shitload of damage. If you like charge it up fully, it like
yes.
Artemis, I need your help. But it's
Oh, the
just,
call.
Like, yeah,
Yes,
the
that's
call.
what it's called. The call.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually didn't really use
Didn't
the
use it that
call
much.
all that
Yep.
often. Did you guys use it
No.
a lot?
It's
I
one of
kinda
those.
forgot about it,
It's one of
honestly.
those. I do this in every game where it's like a special meter, and I always feel like I need to save it up for a big moment.
Yeah.
And then I never use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
one of those. But no, for me, so the first time I made it through the original area, like the first area,
Tartarus?
yes,
Yeah.
was with Zeus's help. And this move is like, it's so unbelievably good that I
Yeah.
always coveted it every time I did it, which is when you sprint, it does a lightning bolt down.
Oh, I loved that one.
And it,
That
like,
was really good.
It will, like, you can just walk or sprint past an enemy and it will auto target them with the lightning bolt.
Yep.
And it does a lot of damage.
Mhm.
And that was like, so Zeus was my guy.
Yep.
And no, but you're right. Like, they all had something kind of interesting to, like, Hermes has like speed.
And I think, what's interesting about
upgrades and
Hermes
stuff,
too,
and-
his is like separated, right? He doesn't overwrite anybody else's boons.
Right.
Hermes is separate from everybody, which I think is pretty
And
cool.
I also felt like evade percent was so helpful
Yes.
too. Where
Yes.
attack would just whiff right through you.
God, now that I say it, are all the gods useful? They might have done a pretty good
all
job.
of them. I think it's actually a hat tip, I think, to the developer where there was I think there was a lot of attention put into balance and variety.
Yes.
There's a lot of combos and stuff you can do, and I wasn't always hoping for one.
Right.
I could make use of a couple.
Like
Right.
even Artemis, I think she really governs your critical percent, which
Yeah.
I don't think another god does. So
Yeah.
I think there was a certain benefit to getting a whole bunch of different gods on your team per
Yeah.
run.
And something that I love that's kind of goes back to what I said before was there's rooms where you can have two, and
Yes.
if you choose one, the other will get offended
Yes.
and like send people after you.
That is very Greek god of them.
very
Yeah.
like, and then they get you a little jealous, you
Yes.
know. And what winds up happening is you if you defeat all those enemies, you just get the other boon.
Yeah.
Like, no hard feelings, like, all right, so it's not gonna like totally screw you,
Right.
But no, I liked that a lot. I liked that there was a lot of variety and options when it came to that. As you briefly mentioned, you can purchase goods through Karen,
Yes.
his stores in Wells, and I found it really funny that I didn't realize I was doing this, but every time I woke up recently, like in real life, I was doing the Karen like, as he always does that when you talk to him.
That's right.
And it's like he makes fun of him a little bit, like oh, how you feeling, mate? And that was great.
Yeah.
You can eventually get that fishing rod. Did you get that?
Yes.
You can like fish
Yep.
out of the river
I love it.
and bring them back to the chef.
Yes.
In the Palace of Hades.
Well, you know what they say: if a game has fishing in it, it automatically makes it better.
A plus,
So,
A plus,
yeah.
of course. I didn't realize this. If you try to steal his money, you'll get a little boss battle.
Yes, you
Yes.
do have a boss fight with Charon. Apparently, he's very difficult to defeat.
Yep.
Interesting.
I never tried it. I might try it sometime,
Yep.
but I never
Yeah,
did.
I was too respectful.
Me
He's like the one guy that's on your side.
Right?
But another aspect, things you can find are the troves.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a very compelling risk versus reward decision, because you're putting your health on the line, because some of them are not like tough, but they you can take a few hits and then it's kind of like, is it worth it to get
Yep.
whatever this is? Sometimes it's health, sometimes it's what are the other resources,
Yeah.
etc. I did like, another little decision you have to make.
Mhm.
There is also, you run into Thanatos,
Yes.
and you have a little competition with him, and that can yield 2 rewards if you beat him. If you kill more enemies than him,
Yes.
you can't hit each other. It's just a little friendly competition. Another weird thing I wanted to bring up was the chaos portals. Did you use them often or find them worth jumping into?
No,
I didn't
I
either.
never found it worth it.
I tried it.
I love chaos.
Okay.
Did you
I am
find it
chaos.
more worth it than to not do it?
I found it very worthwhile early on. While if once you get pretty good at the game, Tartarus kind of becomes a breeze.
Yeah.
So if you get the chaos ones pretty early
You're
on,
gonna take the health knock and
right,
then-
because it's probably not going to affect me in the long run. Chances are, once you've done the game a few times, once you can reliably get through Tartarus, you're probably not going to die in there.
So I didn't realize that this was an aspect of Greek mythology, but this is a different character that you can talk to, and it's kind of like you get. I think for a couple screens you get a negative ding, and then for the rest of the run you get a positive boon. And I didn't realize this was sort of, I guess, what the gods sprang from originally, was this character.
Yes, that
it was
came
like
from
the
chaos.
godfather of all, or whatever. Kind of an interesting. So I thought it was gonna tie in more somewhere, because it's just like they seem like the most powerful character in like the whole thing.
He's like, chaos just doesn't really give a shit. Just like,
No,
whatever,
it's just,
man.
It's just there.
Yeah.
It's just there the whole time. No, so I tried it once or twice,
Yeah.
I think, and it was kind of interesting. At least I didn't find, because I wanted to have like try to be as perfect as possible as I went on.
I mean, because I really liked the chaos portals, that was one of the big decisions I had to make whenever I did my runs. If I'm further along than say the first few rooms, maybe I'm in the second area, my health is kind of low. I see a chaos portal, but I'm like, oh, do I do it?
Right.
Sometimes I did and I regretted it. Sometimes I did and it helped me out for the rest of the run. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool. It's one of those micro decisions that really pushes the game along. I
Yeah.
feel.
And so speaking of, back to the House of Hades here. As you progress, you can spend your resources and try to improve things, and you can actually give yourself like heal rooms as it goes along, like fountain rooms, I guess.
Yes.
And I think that's a cool thing. I often found like they showed up when I didn't need them.
I know. Yeah.
It was like, oh, I'm already like pretty close to full health.
Yeah.
But okay.
That was a pretty good reason to because typically in the beginning you're like, why am I going to go for gems rather than going for the level up things? Then later on you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Well, a lot of it is so you the little builder ghosts or whatever they are. They make these little improvements to the House of Hades, and you spend the gems with them, and most of them are cosmetic.
There's a lot of cosmetics. So you think it's just a cosmetic thing, but then you're like, wait a minute.
There's a whole
wait
separate menu for that.
Yeah.
And that is also where you can select and try out your weapons.
Yes.
So you have the sword, the spear, the shield, the bow, the fists, and the gun. So as I mentioned, you try them out on Skelly, the little target dummy guy who talks to you. You can upgrade them. This is like invaluable with the Daedalus hammer.
Yes.
Those are always very coveted for me. And Titan's blood and NPCs can be used to unlock their full potential. So those are some other ways you can improve. I think, Greg, you may have mentioned it. So which were your favorite weapons to use, and which one did you make it to the end with your first time?
So as far as I'm aware, I believe the sword is technically hard mode. That's what I've heard from some of my friends who are very into this
So
game.
that's the first weapon.
Yeah,
the first
so
weapon you
essentially is the hardest. So what's funny, like the first time I beat the game with fists were not even my favorite. It just happened to work out.
Yeah.
Where all the upgrades I got, it happened to work. I think my favorites ended up being probably spear, and the bow gets very overpowered with some of those ultimate abilities. But I really, maybe I'm a sucker for sword and board. I like sword and spear. Nick, do you have any takes?
Yeah. So my first time being in the game was with the shield. I was a big shield guy. I really liked Aegis. I think that's how you pronounce it. Yeah. I really liked Aegis. There's a couple of cool aspects you get on it. Like I said earlier, getting the Doom effect on the shield throw. You can throw multiple shields, have like 12 enemies at once, just blow up. It's pretty freaking fun.
Right.
I also enjoyed the spear. And this is weird. I'm not a big bow guy, so I realize how good it is. Actually, one of my best runs before I beat the game was with the bow, even though I don't really enjoy bows in these kind of games. I feel like this is the kind of game where you want to like get in there, get people's business. I actually kind of like the adamant rail. It's like ridiculous,
It's
but
awesome,
I kind of love it. But I will say my top 3 are shield, spear, adamant rail, and I've only beaten the game twice, and both times it was with the shield.
Okay. Yeah, so I enjoyed the fists a lot. They're just like in terms of they do a lot of damage very quickly.
Yeah.
The spear is also very good for the range. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that, just keeping people at bay. You mentioned the adamant rail is the gun. And I just thought it was, I mean, so it's the last one you can unlock. And I thought it was really funny because it operates very differently where you have to reload it.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's kind of interesting, like that they don't all, they're not all mash fests, you know, you gotta consider it a little bit.
I appreciate how different the adamant rail is.
And what I noticed, I spent some time looking at this. It creates little piles of shells that don't go away. Like it'll stay
that's
there
cool.
until
That's
you.
cool. I didn't notice
It's just
that.
kind of like, you know, you keep shooting them. But yeah, so I inadvertently made it to the end with the sword, and I don't know how. Like you're like,
Cool.
wow, that's hard mode. I'm like, I don't know. It just worked out. I was just cycling through because I wasn't doing well. I'm like, I'll try the sword again, and it somehow worked out for me.
I don't know if you guys did this, but I know I think it happens every run. One of your weapons will randomly be blessed with granting you 20% more of the upgrade dark crystal things. I tended to go with that a lot just to like try it because I don't know, I'm a sucker for just leveling up. So whenever a weapon flashed with that, I tended to take it and try it on a run. I'm not sure if you
It
guys
also
did
makes
that
the
too.
run more worthwhile.
Right, exactly.
Yep. So further, another in your own room in the House of Hades, you have the mirror. Which I think provides like the most meaningful upgrades. It's Nyx, the adoptive mother, gives this to you. I think the best ones that you can get from this are your second dash, and you can get multiple revives. So
Crucial for me.
So I was working towards getting the third one. And all I wound up needing was the 2 revives. I somehow made it through like that. Another aspect that I really liked is you encounter a lot of NPCs in the House of Hades. You can improve your relationship with them by giving them like the nectar and the ambrosia. And it's kind of interesting because I was like, you can even give it to Hades, your father, who is the oppressive figure. And it's like, here you go, father. Like, I thought you might like this. And he just very begrudgingly takes it.
Fine.
Yeah, it's kind of I don't because it's a very sparsely collected item. So it's like, you know, it kind of makes sense. Like you giving this away is like a big deal, you know. And I thought that was kind of cool. That's the way you build up your relationship.
There's
with,
a gameplay
NPCs.
factor in that too, because you give everybody except for Hades, of course, one nectar. They give you a keepsake.
Yes.
Which I think is very important.
Yeah. And so you use those, you can apply. Which one of those did you like the best?
Oh man. So God,
I think I had one that did extra health. That was the one
I
liked
kept
the
that. Is that the
most.
dog collar?
Dog collar. You guys know me. Whenever I play these RPGs, I'm a min-maxer. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I'm going for. When I found the kind of gods that I liked and the boons they liked, I always put on their respective keepsake.
Sure.
So like in Tartarus, I'd put on Ares' charm. So I make sure I can get an Ares blessing for this run. In Asphodel, I'd put on the Aphrodite one to make sure I get an Aphrodite blessing.
Right.
And then in the very last one, I would put on usually the HP up, or occasionally I would put on Skellies for another extra revive in case I needed it.
Yep.
But yeah, that's typically how I did. I switched it up every haul when I had the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's another thing so you don't initially have that option. It's something you can buy from the contractors. That you can switch it as you go on.
That's right.
Yeah, that's kind of cool that you can kind of stack the odds in your favor there. So that is essentially the central gameplay loop. I wanted to talk a little bit about the enemies. So it's a pretty straightforward. You know, you're just kind of zooming around the battlefield. You can exploit some traps here and there against them. I wanted to ask if you had any particularly memorable or frustrating enemies.
Oh yeah, I've got one. My mantra in games: if one of your power-ups or options is to turn a certain enemy off, you know the enemy sucks.
Mhm.
There is
Okay.
a power-up for getting rid of what they're called flame wheels. They're the chariot guys in
Oh,
Elysium that
yes.
just run
Yeah.
at you. And you can get a power-up that eliminates them from showing up.
Oh yeah.
So the devs know how annoying they made
Yeah.
those guys.
Yeah, those guys suck.
I hate
Mhm.
in any sort of game. I may have mentioned this on a previous episode, whether it's Diablo or Dark Souls, any sort of enemy that tries to kamikaze themselves into you
Oh my
is
God.
probably
Like,
my
so
least
annoying.
favorite enemy.
Yeah.
Like you got this that they brought me back to like the skeleton babies in Diablo 2 that ruined many of my runs in one of the
Mhm.
areas. I hate those things. So that's a long way of saying flame wheels. Actually, maybe the entirety of Elysium is like the worst enemies
Yeah.
in the game.
Mhm.
Those,
but,
those are very rough.
I do
Yeah.
like the guys who threw the bombs though. I thought they were fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, so you had it wasn't all, you know, they all had like different sort of attack patterns
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I had a hard time with we're gonna get into some of the funny ones later,
Uh-oh.
but the ones that would lock onto you, like the crystal
Oh,
things, or
yeah.
like let's make sure we take them out first.
Yeah.
The ones that could like hold you in place
Yes.
were very frustrating.
Mhm.
I mean, I found most of them pretty fun to fight.
I didn't have too many issues, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of it's just being overwhelmed or, you know, getting hung up on a boss.
Well,
for
the game
me.
also moves so fast that
Yeah.
an enemy annoyance just goes by in a snap.
It's true.
You
Yep.
know, you kind of, and that's crazy because you have to make these split-second decisions
Yeah.
about like who you're going to focus on.
Totally.
Like millisecond decision making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to. So you have the three main areas. Let's say I wanted to get into just the bosses really quickly.
Yeah.
So for Tartarus, you have the Furies,
Mhm.
and that's kind of interesting. Where you will, for a while, you only get one of them,
Yes.
and then her sisters start showing up. And did you have like a particular one that you were hoping to get, or you thought was easier?
Yeah, I always wanted to get Meg.
Yeah, me
the
too.
original one.
The original one. Yeah, I think this is the trigger. I may be wrong, but I think the trigger for them is you have to beat Meg first. Her sisters
Right.
won't show up until you beat her. I didn't start seeing her sisters until I died, I believe, to the boss in Asphodel.
Okay.
I don't remember if it happened before then. Maybe I just got lucky and kept seeing Meg, but the first
Right.
time I remember it, the one I didn't like to fight was the one who like randomly made the room black and like switched things around.
Was that the zombie one or the other
I
one?
think it was the zombie one. I can't remember
That was
which one.
tough.
Yeah, I get a little disoriented when games throw me in different areas, so that kind of messes me up a little
Especially
bit.
when there's like other enemies coming on screen. too.
Yeah. So I always wished I would fight Meg.
Yeah.
Well, also your interactions with Meg are also really fun.
They are.
Yeah.
Where like
yeah.
I something I really appreciate about the voice acting in this game is your character is always like very sarcastic because he knows he has to do this over and over again. He's
Yeah.
like, "Hello, Meg. Like,
We're
hello
doing this again."
We're doing this again."
Yeah, and then you can see her in like the lounge, and
Yeah,
and
when you beat her.
she's like really pissed.
Yeah, and what I love is if Meg kills you and you kind of wake up back in the House of Hades, you go, "Thanks, Meg." Yeah, it's really funny.
And Hypnos, your like stepbrother or whatever, will
Oh, yeah.
will kind of inadvertently mock you, like,
Yes.
"Oh, you got killed by Meg again, huh?"
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty. It's
very
pretty cute.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Asphodel is like the fiery kind of area, and you have the Bone Hydra.
Yeah.
And that one, I thought was the most consistently easy boss.
You know what's so weird about that one? I had so much difficulty with the Bone Hydra until I just didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like for Meg, it took me a few tries to get through Meg. I didn't think I think she was that hard, but I died to the Bone Hydra so many times, and then I never died to it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It's so once you get like there's some abilities that do like armor piercing, and you can
Yeah.
go after like the individual heads one by one. That's how you break his barrier or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that boss. Like, it wasn't like annoying.
No,
you
I
know?
enjoyed it too. Whenever I died, I was like, yep, this one's on me. Sorry, Zach.
Yep.
That was
Right.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you get to Elysium, and it's balls to the wall.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
this is not the Elysium Harry Dubois wants to go to.
No.
This place is
Absolutely-
very
absolutely.
bad.
There's no disco happening here.
No.
No.
So what I did think was interesting is that you can choose to fight the Minotaur by himself first, and then he will be more vulnerable. He'll have depleted health, or
The second time around.
That's I didn't know that. Really? I purposely skipped his initial fight.
Yeah, I always do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So he'll have like a lower health bar,
Wow.
This was the thing that hung me up, I think, the most of anything, where you have to fight the two guys at the same time because it's a very Ornstein and Smaug kind of thing, where you have the Minotaur charging around at you, getting up close and personal, and Theseus is throwing his spear at you, and he can you kind of see the little crosshair on you, and you have to hide behind statues and stuff, and it's not like, I don't want to call it unfair. It's very kind of just, you really have to be paying attention.
Yes.
You can't just derp your way through it.
No.
You have to actually, and it's funny because like a lot of the earlier encounters can definitely be derped through, and it's just kind of just, all right, let's get serious.
I think this is one of the first or enemy encounters where you have to be aware of your spatial positioning because there's a target.
Yes.
Where there aren't really other enemies like that. Maybe the bomb throwers. You have to be aware of, okay, the arrow's this way, I have to move.
Yeah.
Typically, movement isn't a part of a lot of interaction in this game.
There's a trap in Elysium where it's constantly shooting these big bolts at you, and that kind of very similarly, I didn't realize that it takes away a ton of health.
Yes.
And I'm like, what is hitting me? And that's what it's like. So as the game progresses, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you do have to play a little bit smarter and smarter and smarter.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. So I thought this was going to be the end of the game because it was so hard. And then you get a little further. So you get into the Styx portion where Cerberus, your buddy. We even talk about
we haven't even talked about Cerberus.
Cerberus is your pet dog, your family dog, very cute.
Yeah,
and they really like troll you when it comes to, you think you're gonna get like a Sif fight, and like oh no, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm like, oh come on, we're not gonna fight. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And you wind up, I think, what is it? You have to find something for him, like a smelly like gourd or something.
You find him food basically, and he basically lets you just
have to
go through.
So this part, I was so frustrated because I made it so far, and I didn't realize how the poison stuff worked.
Yeah, I didn't realize like how to turn it off or how to heal it.
Right.
Yeah.
So what wound up killing me when I got super far, I finally beat the duo, was some rats, and they poisoned me. And so what you have to, I mean, here's the thing, I don't love this part, but at least it changes it up a little bit, where you have to find the healing pool. You like as soon as you walk into a room in this part, you have to like eyeball like, where am I gonna go if I get poisoned? And I thought that, I mean, at least, change the dynamic a little bit.
Yep.
So you wind up, it's like a kind of like a little mini area, and you make your way past Cerberus, and at the bottom it's like, instead of where it would normally say boss defeated, it's like Cerberus went home. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But no, so you wind up having a final boss encounter with Hades himself here, and this, speaking of derping your way through, this was 100% derping for me. I don't know if you guys have any differing experiences, but I was just mashing the shit out of like, every attack I had in my arsenal, and hoping that I because like I said, I was working towards that third revive. I really thought I was going to need it, but no, it only took me, I think, 3 tries.
Wow.
To defeat him. And so how was your experience fighting Hades himself?
So I think this was one of those where I'm trying to stack damage over time, or I'm trying to stack freeze, and I'm almost trying to like survive against him. I'm kind of watching my health, his health, my revives. It's not like I'm not trying. I'm like, if I can just outlast him and get through this.
Right.
That's what I did.
Yeah, I very similar. I wasn't a freeze guy. I didn't use freeze, but similar thing here. I tried to stack the damage over time. And for me, because I used the shield, I actually played it very defensively, because you can block pretty much all of Hades' attacks, except for maybe 1 or 2. So I played very defensive, block stuff through the shield, like dashed at him and stuff, trying to get damage over time and all of that good stuff on him. So I'm not saying, okay, so I kind of ran around like a chicken and just out of 10 and just throwing my shield at him, just hoping to like get him down. So it didn't take me too many tries to beat Hades, but the time I did, it took me forever. Because I kept just trying to wear him down.
You play this battle slower than others.
I played it very slow because I felt like, there's not as much going on, especially in the beginning. So I felt I could position well.
Well, he's a multi-phase boss
He
also.
is. Oh, that drove me nuts. I was actually with you when I beat Hades, you as in Greg, when I beat Hades first time. I was like, I did it. And you're just like,
Yeah.
And I was like, son of a bitch. Here we go.
Shit. Yeah, no, I mean, I totally, and something else I was kind of interested in was that you talk about the freeze. You only get access to the freeze once you make it to the surface for the first time.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Because the surface is so cold for whatever reason, and Demeter only gets in contact with you after you make it to the surface and die.
Yeah.
So they keep throwing stuff at you even
cool.
as you're in the last.
There's a lot of drip in this game. Like there's always
cool.
a little variation or a little change or something else to try or information to be given.
Yeah.
Right. So before we get into kind of like the ending and final thoughts and all of that, I wanted to get into like the NPCs, some of our favorite characters and stuff. Kind of an interesting story with Achilles and Patroclus, I think is how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
They're kind of separated. They have like a relationship that you can develop over time. Achilles is just kind of like the house guard. He's just very defeated.
Yeah.
Kind of like your
Crestfallen warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of rooting you on. Orpheus and Eurydice are the kind of like the musical couple that are separated. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
The Sisyphus and the boulder, which is called Boldy.
I love it. That was one of my favorite things.
That was so these are all like Greek mythology characters, but the boulder I think you can give the nectar to.
Yes.
And everything, which is really funny.
Yeah, it's like what? Give nectar to a freaking boulder. It's
oh
great.
my god. And I really wanted to. So I only played through this once for the preparation of this. Like, I mean, I only defeated Hades once, right? But there is more and more story, like the more you finish it. So for me, I didn't feel for me, it was just like, I made it to the end, and it's like, there's always going to be more, like it's going to be, you can kind of like play it ad infinitum, and there's kind of more, you sort of develop your relation, you can get more of the ambrosia and stuff and give it to the people and develop the stories further. And it's kind of interesting because so Hades is like, obviously he's the title character. He's just your dad. He's this giant guy sitting at a desk signing like writs the whole time, like like little ghosts lining up to meet him. Denied.
Yeah,
it's very funny. But you can kind of improve. What I didn't realize was that you improve your relationship with him over time, and he will gradually grow to respect you the more you defeat him. And what it kind of winds up becoming, like, he lets you escape. Like, he's like, oh, you can find our security flaws. Yeah. Like if you and I thought that was kind of cute, but it was a little like upsetting or not. I mean, you're obviously feeling what the character is feeling, but disappointing that. So you find your real mother, Persephone, who has a little garden plot outside on the surface, and your character can't survive for that long on the surface. And it was just kind of like, oh my god, like he dies like a couple minutes later. It's like, oh my god, dude. And it felt very invalidating. Like, it was very like you're right after you're going, fuck, I did it, and it's just like, nope.
No, you're going right back. Your ass is going right back to Hades,
my
man.
God, that was I'm not the type of person who is going to play this over and over again.
Yeah,
personally.
so you and I are the same. So well, I mean, I believe, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I believe if you get up to her enough times, I think it's 7 or so, she comes down and lives in the House of Hades.
Right.
And so you kind of get a little bit more story about your relationship with her every time. That's kind of the impetus to keep beating it.
Right.
Is you get a little more drip of the story. You almost get the real ending if you beat it enough times.
Yeah.
But we've encountered like a gaming thing that I don't like, where
I'm
not super interested in doing that.
What's that game that we talked about? We didn't do an episode on it, but you have to play it many times to get the true ending.
Oh, I mean, there are games like that, like the 9 hours, 9 days, whatever. That game does that.
What's the Nier Automata?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Not my favorite kind of. I don't really like these Groundhog Day beat it over and over again sort of things.
So my thing is like, so I already played it a ton. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like, and I made it like pretty far, like a good amount of the times. Don't have it like, so you said 30 runs. That's like, you know, not all of them are complete, but that's still a lot. Like,
Yeah,
I'm kind of
sure.
like done with it. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. You want to interject
Yes,
here?
please,
Yeah.
because I think the roguelike fans are seething right now. So I need to
Yeah.
calm the masses
Listen, so
here.
I okay, you can have your moment, but
Yes,
just
please take it.
Just note that this is my personal preference.
Yeah.
I have spoken at length about what I liked about this game and roguelikes in general now that I have played one. Not necessarily my favorite type of game, but I really appreciate how well put together it is. This is just the one aspect that doesn't really click with me.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because that's like the point of roguelikes
Right.
is to beat the game multiple times. So I feel it's kind of unfair to talk trash about a game that makes you do that
No,
because
yeah.
that's kind of what it's for.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just like, listen, am I going to beat this game multiple times? Probably not. I beat it a couple times. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'll beat it anymore. I might, maybe if I'm bored, I might do a run, as they say.
Yeah.
And I think what this game does really well, you know, every roguelike, you have the ability, you know, it's made for you to keep beating it multiple times.
Yeah.
This game, I think, does it a little differently where your reward for beating it is more story.
Yeah.
Which I think is really cool.
That is
I
good.
don't know a ton about roguelikes, so maybe if there are other roguelikes that have done this, please let us know in
Yeah.
the comments. But for me, this is the first one, at least the big one that I've heard of, where you can actually get a true ending or more story or more dialogue from beating a game multiple times. And I think the whole going up and, you know, it's just so tragic, right? Because after that first time you do it, Zagreus kind of knows that, okay, once I get up here, I only have 3 or 4 minutes to talk to who would is presumed to be my mother,
Right.
and try to have her answer one question before I'm dragged back into Hades.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty cool way of going
Yeah.
about the roguelike structure.
Yeah, if you have to
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah.
that's definitely the way.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do it.
Otherwise, the game's not a roguelike, and we're talking about it like it's an action RPG. Or a
Sure. I
Diablo.
mean, I think we're all in alignment here.
Yeah.
Where I just roguelikes are not my favorite kind of design.
Yeah.
But this game does it where you get some story
Mm-hmm.
reward for doing it. It's just not the kind of thing I'm going to keep playing.
Yep.
I'm very, I mean, especially now that I am older, I don't have as much time.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you were super duper into this type of game, it would be amazing.
Our friend Will is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, you could play it ad infinitum. I'm just kind of the guy who, you know, once you kind of see the credits roll, it's like, all right, I'm on to the next thing. I'm on to the next episode of Goddamn Game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, lastly, I mean, I just wanted to mention one last point here. The amount of effort that Supergiant put into this is a little bit heartening because this was 2018,
Yeah.
a little heartening after our soul-crushing developer madness series. We're like, fuck, who do we like? Who do
Yeah.
we still like? And this is a developer now that I could say, oh, I would trust them to
Yeah.
I'll play something else they do.
This is a high integrity developer.
I would say so. I would
Yeah.
definitely say so.
I believe, Greg, you and I both mentioned it during Developer Madness because we had played Hades before we did Developer Madness. That, you know, because of Hades and the amount of effort they put into it, that made Supergiant a little bit higher in our
Yeah,
regards.
sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. So, you want to get into final thoughts and grades here?
Yeah. Why don't we do grades? Why don't you go ahead?
Me?
Yeah. Why don't you, yeah. I don't know if you have any more to say for final thoughts and give your grade.
I think I just got a grade. I would give this is another 8 for me.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with an 8.
All right. So here are my final thoughts
Yeah,
on Hades.
sure.
This was I think all of our first roguelike
If
game.
you don't count Diablo.
I don't count Diablo. It's a very different kind of game for me, but this was my first one. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue playing roguelikes, mostly because I don't know if any will compare to Hades.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
Because we've talked about it very highly, and I believe the masses, the reviewers, this game is pretty much lauded by everybody.
Yeah.
Right. This game is a pretty much a commercial hit. So good for Supergiant. I think they made a very quality game. I think we saw some lesser known figures, some Greek mythology.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Zagreus and even Chaos. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
seen Chaos
Yeah.
in any other game. And I think that's a huge selling point in this game's favor. Not a lot of games are treading new ground. And I feel like maybe with God of War, a lot of games didn't want to try and do Greek
Yeah,
mythology
sure.
because they already did it. But Supergiant...
This is very different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, it is. But Supergiant had a really good and, like you said, Riley, I'm going to quote you, a very tasteful take
Yes.
on how all
Yeah.
the gods, and they gave them their own personalities. But you know, I felt like they may have given them all their different personalities, and I think it worked.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Completely.
So for me, This game is pretty much perfect as a roguelike. If you're going to play a game multiple times, it might as well be Hades. A roguelike fan will find endless fun with this game.
Yeah.
I may return to it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this kind of game that might sit in my Switch forever if I ever feel like just doing a run.
Yeah.
So because of all of that, and because of how many points it hits on what things you want to see in a roguelike, as I said, I believe it's unfair to knock it down for the kind of game it is.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's like me saying, I don't like Fire Emblem. It's not strategy.
Yeah.
It's a strategy game. I don't like
I mean,
those.
to be clear, I'm
Yeah.
always going by just the me experience.
Yeah, totally. No, I get that.
Like
I
where
get
it
that.
hit, that thing at the carnival where you hit the
Yeah.
bell,
sure.
and it's got to raise to a certain point.
Mhm.
For me, that was an 8 for this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Nick, grade?
Yep. So because of all the little details, everything they did, there's just so much care put into this game from a studio that does not have millions upon millions of dollars
True,
to
yeah.
put into a game. This game is a 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah,
A
that's
minus.
hard. I mean, final thoughts. So like I think they put, like you guys said, they put a very cute spin on what the personalities of gods would be like. And I think my favorite part about this game was like almost like your very humanistic like conversations with
Yeah.
them.
I'm thinking about like how they all have different personalities versus like God of War, where they're just like names on a hit list.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, like one of the funniest parts of this game I think are when you die and you're like, oh, thanks. Right.
Right,
Or like you
right.
like you're chilling at the bar and you've killed Meg and she's like, dude, like fuck you. Like
yeah, she won't talk to you.
yeah, it's like really funny.
Wretched
But
broker.
it's hard to grade something because I play Darkest Dungeon, not really my thing. I'm a Diablo fan, but it's so hard. Like I don't even know. I think this game, I think I'm gonna declare like B+.
Okay.
Or like I don't know if I can give it an A because it didn't really compel me.
Right.
I don't really like roguelikes, but it's really good for what it is. Kind of hard to say. It's probably B+.
If I was into this type of game, it would be a 10.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like
sure.
that's what I would
yeah,
say.
Yeah. I think that's going to do it for now, and we will see you guys next time on Goddamn GameCube. Thanks.
Thank you for listening.